Why is Tesla talking about nickel mining? They even are saying that they might become a miner, but they're definitely interested in generating supply. Why is that important? I think it's much more important than people think. It's not just the nickel itself, but it's also the idea of vertical integration that we cannot overemphasize in our concept of the innovation stack, which is the fundamental thesis of our Tesla investment. This is a Not Even Wrong podcast. It's October 6, 2020. This is Krim Delco. For the day, we are down about 3%. The market is down about 0.5%. We are up 201% for the year, and the market is up about 4%. We're outperforming by 197%. So there has been some news that Tesla is looking for mining concessions, that they're either trying to get into mining themselves or they're talking about doing long-term contracts with miners, particularly in Indonesia. There is some talk in Australia, and they've also mentioned ideas in Nevada, although that was more on the lithium side. But it just puts an interesting question out there that I think is worth discussing in an episode. And the episode here is dedicated to the question: is vertical integration? Is there a limit to it? Why is Tesla going all the way to the nickel side? And what does it mean in general for Tesla, this whole vertical integration? So let's start with nickel and a few technical details. So the nickel supply and demand picture right now looks as follows: that we have about 70% of nickel, which is used for stainless steel products like your kitchen appliances, etc. And then 30% of nickel is used for other things, and amongst those there are batteries, the traditional batteries, and then the lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. Overall, it's about 3% of the market, so it's very small right now, and that's partly because, of course, the volume for EVs are very small, and therefore there is just not that much demand relative to other uses of nickel. Now, you might say, why is Tesla going into this 3% of the market? Who cares? Well, of course, they care because Musk is not saying it, but I think he thinks that by 2030, he wants 50 million cars to be produced electric vehicle only. That means no hybrid and all that stuff. And, they want to be 20 million, and then they hope that there will be another 30 million by other producers. Anyway, the point here is that we're looking at a dramatic increase of demand for lithium-ion batteries or some sort of battery that is powering electric vehicles. Now, the nickel side itself, if we just do the math like this, if we have 100 units of nickel, 3 units are going into batteries, and if we believe that by 2030 we have about 15x in demand for nickel, then we will have 45 units of nickel relative to today. So just 15x from today. And if everything else stays the same, then the 100 becomes 142, and 45 out of 142 would be about 35%. So nickel is expected to go from 3% to 35% of global nickel demand. Another way to say it is that we're looking to add 42% of today's nickel production in 10 years to satisfy the demand. So these numbers show already that there is a much more dramatic need to do something. This is not just, like I said, 3% of the market, who cares? This is a real issue, and that's why Tesla is interested in it. So that's number one. Number two, I think I'm not that familiar with the nickel lithium-ion battery chemistry, but I know a little bit from following companies in the lithium-ion space that using nickel in general means an upgrade in the battery. So better cars, better performance means more nickel. Also, if you go on the nickel website, there is a nickel organization that just looks at It gives you statistics and all that stuff. They say that the nickel used in lithium-ion batteries increases storage capacity and energy density, and it reduces charging time, increases power performance. So all the things that are needed for an electric vehicles, particularly trendy, intelligent, fast electric vehicle like a Tesla, all these things are driven by nickel. And another way to say it is that if we go from low-end, cheap, China type produced electric vehicles to the more Tesla style electric vehicles, we will have increasingly more nickel used in the batteries. So that means that my math that I just did, the 3% going to full 35%, probably is even underestimating the demand for nickel if we assume that by 2030 we might have 50 million electric vehicles, which are also superior to comparable ICE vehicles. So having said all of that, I think it explains why Tesla is aggressively going after nickel production. They have two reasons here, in my view. One is that they don't want to be at the mercy of the nickel producers. Mining companies are notorious for trying to squeeze the market, although in the end they never can, because commodities are commodities. And if you squeeze the market for a year or two, you just create profits that attract other incumbents, and then the supply goes up. And then usually there's a boom and a bust and all that stuff. So, but still, you don't want to be in a position where volatility starts becoming more extreme. That's also why Musk, quote, said that he wants the nickel producers not to play the market. He wants them to invest in production capacity and then get long-term contracts and do the right thing, and that is the best for everybody. Now, having said that, I want to get to the second point, which is actually probably even more important, that is sustainable production. So things like child labor, environmental sustainability, all these things need to be addressed by Tesla, because it is probably not the case that the nickel producers will address them. Now, if you look at one company that we particularly have been following in the past, so we're a little bit closer to them, although we haven't looked at them and spoken with them for years, but still we have been talking to them in the past, so we know them a little bit. It's Norilsk Nickel from Russia. It's a company that has a very large market share in nickel production, and also a company that, according to themselves, so according to their presentation, is spending a lot of time on ESG. So they are definitely at least projecting to try to be a sustainable, do the right thing kind of company. So nevertheless, I think it is understandable that Tesla doesn't want to be reliant completely on the mining industry to source the required commodities in the right way. So Tesla is going into that market for two reasons. One is to make sure there is enough of it, and second, that it's mined in the proper way. And this leads me to the second question, which always comes up when we talk about Tesla and disruptive innovation, and that is the innovation stack. And you might think that, well, come on, what does nickel mining have to do with the innovation stack? And the answer is a lot. In fact, it has a lot more to do than you might think, because this is another one of those problems that Tesla is solving that are, on the one hand, solving a problem, which is good for the business, but more importantly, building another layer in the innovation stack that other competitors will not be able to attack. For example, so Tesla is talking to, let's say, an Indonesian mining consortium to source nickel that can produce the amount that is needed to go forward. First of all, they might be able to secure enough high-grade nickel to actually have an advantage in battery production. But let's say that since nickel is a commodity, we're not going to go there and say it's probably going to be available for others too. But the way that this whole thing is mined can have a competitive advantage effect for Tesla, because if Tesla can convince a mining company to do it the Tesla way, then that can become a new way of mining, which maybe also will bring innovation in technology, reduce the cost of mining, and give those miners who work with Tesla a competitive advantage. And now all of a sudden, you're looking at a situation where Tesla, the supply chain of Tesla, has another cost advantage. Maybe it's only a few percent, but you start adding up these things, they start making a difference. And finally, I think also part of the innovation stack is the ability to say that we source our materials in a sustainable way. I don't care what people are saying. I think Wall Street cares about ESG to the point where it is also translating into better sales. And Tesla has proven more and more that the core customer base of Tesla does care about these things. So what I'm trying to say here is, if I have the choice between a $50,000 Tesla and a $50,000 BMW, everything else equal, and the Tesla is mined more sustainably, I will buy the Tesla. So this is part of the innovation stack, and I cannot overemphasize how important that is, and we're very happy that Tesla is doing that. Of course, there's a cost associated to it, the cost of actually dealing with this and having people involved and all that. But I think because Tesla is in the business of growing 40 to 50% CAGR, they have to think about these long-term issues. They cannot rely on the market the same way they're not relying on battery technology to just follow them, that they're actually involved in the battery themselves, the same way they have to also look at the mining situation around the world. Finally, I want to just emphasize another point, which is part of the innovation stack, not necessarily related to mining, but very, very important. That is the charging network of Tesla. And I've just come across a tweet today by somebody who said, the charging network of Tesla is going to be commoditized because there is Electrify America, there's EVgo, there is people in Europe, etc., etc. My point here is that that is not going to happen. According to our belief, Tesla's charging network is a competitive advantage because it's part of the innovation stack. And what that means is that Tesla has solved a few problems. For example, the payment problem. One simple thing, which I think goes a long way, which is that you can go anywhere in the US and probably also the world, but anywhere in the US, to a Tesla charging network, plug in and just go. And you're going to be charged. The payment is solved. It's a small thing. You might think, well, others can do that too. Yes, they can. But this is the same thing like with Square. Yeah, everybody can do a small reader and then do payments in your local organic fresh market. But it's not happening. It's not happening. I go to even Whole Foods and places like that, and the payment is still a headache. I have to swipe my card. It doesn't work. The Apple Pay doesn't work. It's a headache. Payment is not easy. Tesla has solved it. And that's just one little piece of the value stack that they've introduced in the charging network. Of course, the other part is that they have their own charging network in part of the navigation, which also does all the calculation for you. And I'm not so sure how fast Volkswagen or others will be able to follow up with that and all these other organic charging networks which are growing around the US, how fast they will be integrated into some sort of navigation system which will do the math for you. So my point here is that vertical integration for Tesla at this point, I think, cannot go far enough. The more the better. There will be a time when commoditization of certain parts of the value chain will happen. I think Tesla will be the first to recognize that. They will be the first to let that go and let others do it. But right now, I think it cannot go far enough because they're building an industry, they're building an experience, they're building a new way of life, and nobody is out there in the marketplace is actually doing it. I mean, let me give you another example. This is just me as a customer talking. Why isn't Tesla building small coffee shop, cafes around their charging networks? How great would that be? Again, nobody's doing that because Tesla is the first to even have a charging network. So why would somebody do it? But this would be an amazing addition to the Tesla charging network. Small cafes, like a la maybe Pret a Manger. They could even buy the company. It's probably bankrupt anyway by now because of all the inner cities going down and all that. But my point is something like that where you have delicious sandwiches, a bit of coffee, a nice fancy place to sit, do some work, maybe check your email, all that stuff. Yes, you can do it in the car, I get it, but it just will be a nice addition, maybe not everywhere, but at least in some parts of the charging network. So again, something that only Tesla can do because they control everything, and it would be an amazing experience. So to summarize, Tesla's foray into the mining market, in our view, makes a lot of sense. It is absolutely necessary to deal with these issues because they are part of the innovation stack, which is required for Tesla to reach their 40 to 50% CAGR, but also helps Tesla become a more differentiated, competitive company. And vertical integration, according to in our beliefs, cannot go far enough at this point. Thank you.